This is the second webinar we've done this year, and we're really getting really great feedback and great response from them. So thank you for joining us today. So we're going to be talking about goodbye ancient file server and hello modern office. So what's that all about? Well, if you're new to AMP, I'm going to give you a commercial before we get going here today, and forgive me for that. AMP is a managed IT service provider, and we support clients that have anywhere from a minimum of 20 PCs up to 500 PCs. And we will help you implement a proven IT strategy that aligns with your business goals. And by doing so, we can remove all your IT challenges, and that's going to allow you to really focus on growing your business and supporting your clients. We have data that we can share with you that shows that our clients achieve 4 times more value and productivity from their IT investments once they start working with us. So, hey, let's get on with what we're going to talk about today. So today is all about looking at your current on-premise file server and then talking about what are alternatives to that and why you might want to consider that. And the proposal we want to make for you is that to remove your on-premise file server and take a look at the benefits of SharePoint Online. We're going to talk about how security works with SharePoint Online. I have Matt here with us today, who's going to give us a live demo of what SharePoint looks like and how it works. And then we're going to come back to me and talk about the migration, what that looks like, and then we'll have a quick question and answer. So like if we take a look at your file server, I dare say it truly is an ancient file server. The file server technology has been around at Microsoft since the 2000s. And from operating system improvement and upgrade, the file server portion of the operating system has really not migrated and improved very much at all. So that's why we're showing you a caveman in front of this laptop here. The backups are the responsibility of you when you have an on-premise file server, and you're not really able to lock down company data very well. It's very easy for an employee to steal data if they chose to from the company without the company really knowing it. And unfortunately, it's also right now the largest target for cyber criminals, so they can encrypt your data. And once your data is encrypted, request a ransom for you to get the unencryption key to recover your data. Take a look at the Flintstones here, and I believe, just like the Flintstones had really a very old school experience in life, that's very true today of your file server if it's on premise. The way you're sharing files right now, more than likely, is you're sending emails back and forth to one another with a file being attached to it. If I have a Word document and I want to make some modifications to the Word document, I'm saving it as version 1 and then version 2 and version 3. And I have to do that manually. Otherwise, the versioning of the document gets lost completely. You just overwrite on the name of the file with your latest update. And then, of course, trying to find a document in your corporate file system. You know, hey, is it on your own personal map drive? Is it over on the map drives that everyone in the company can see? Or have you saved it in your own My Docs on your PC or your laptop? It's always a mystery trying to find where your data is and where the most current file is you want to work with. And of course, if you want to work with the file, more than likely, because of COVID right now, you need a VPN to do it. And sometimes VPN technology, it really feels to me like you're kind of sucking peanut butter up a straw. It's very hard and very slow. And needless to say, with the abrupt shift to remote working when COVID hit, all of our employees had to scramble home. And when they scrambled home, now all your corporate data is no longer controlled behind a firewall in the office on managed corporate devices. Now your data is out in the wild at all your employees' homes. Are they adequately protected at home? What kind of device has the data now on? It's more than likely on an unmanaged device that the company doesn't own. So your data is leaking out all over the world right now, and you have less and less control of it as that goes on, which obviously is not something that you want to have going on. So what's the answer to this? What's the right way to get to a modern office solution where you can really work anywhere on any device at any time? Well, we call it the modern office here at AMP. And we believe you can work anywhere at any time on any device. And today, what we're really going to focus in on here is SharePoint Online and also OneDrive. So what is SharePoint Online? What is OneDrive? Well, SharePoint Online comes free of charge. I'm going to say that again because this is so important. SharePoint Online and OneDrive come free of charge if you're currently subscribing to an Office 365 or Microsoft 365 subscription. And SharePoint's essentially a mapped drive like you had in your office, where we had all of your corporate data. But instead of sitting on premise in your office, it's now up in Microsoft's Azure data centers. And it's an application that really allows you to share files and also collaborate in your office simultaneously with files. We're going to show that to you today. And it's essentially a centralized location where all your corporate data is shifted up to and lives once you're in SharePoint Online. It's available to all your employees, and it's also available to people outside your organization if you provide them with permission to have it. And again, it's free with your Microsoft 365 subscription. Well, as well as SharePoint Online, we're also going to today talk a little bit about OneDrive. And OneDrive's essentially a mapped drive for every employee in your company. It's as if they used to have a Y drive with their name on it. That shifts off the on-premise file server and into OneDrive, which is now in the tray of your PC, your laptop, your cell phone. And whenever they make a change to a file, it automatically syncs in OneDrive across all of your devices. So there's no more hunting and pecking and trying to find the most current version of that file. And just like SharePoint, with OneDrive, I can share my files even though they're my own personal files. And I can decide who I share them with, how I share with them. And again, it's free with your Microsoft 365 subscription. So what are some of the cool things that are about SharePoint Online and we want to share with you today, I think, are simplified file management. It's really easy to organize information, to assign people and projects in a single platform to your data. And the data is essentially accessible from any device, as long as that device is connected to the internet. So from my cell phone, from my tablet, from my Mac at home, from my laptop when I'm in a hotel room, or my PC if I come into work. And I can get to it without using a VPN. There's no more VPNs required. And you have the exact same experience across all the devices. And here's a key thing to take in mind. When you have a file server on-prem, you have to worry about upgrading the file server. You have to worry about securing it. You have to worry about backing it up. You have to worry about power and cooling. Well, all that goes away. You're literally transferring all that risk and all that work away from your company and over to Microsoft, because they patch SharePoint. They back up SharePoint. They upgrade the software. They run the power and cool the machines. These are things that you used to have to worry about, and you're already paying for it. You don't have to pay another penny once you're migrated into SharePoint Online. To me, it's really compelling. SharePoint Online also helps improve collaboration and communication. And what's interesting about SharePoint Online is it kind of connects and goes right through the most critical application Microsoft offers today, which is Microsoft Teams. Every file that can be accessed through SharePoint Online can happen through Teams. And with any of the other 365 applications, it's seamlessly shared across the whole Office 365 ecosystem. There's no longer the need to send an attachment to share a file. All your files, internal and external, are shared via secure links where you assign who sees the data. You assign how long they get to access the data. And then you can collaborate real time. Here at AMP years ago, when we were working on a Word document or a proposal for a client, I would write some changes, save it, email it over to Mike Silverman. He'd read my changes, add his own, rename the file with Mike's edits, and move down the line, so on and so forth, through each employee. And we do that one at a time. in a round-robin fashion. Today, we can call up a Word document on our screen in Teams and all at the same time make changes to the document. Real time, all of us editing. You can see who's typing, who's reading, who's making a change. We're going to demonstrate so you can see what that looks like today. But the level of collaboration and communication once you kick over to SharePoint Online will astonish you. But what also comes with SharePoint Online is this critical need to protect your corporate data. I can tell you, and in our last webinar, we talked about some sad stories of companies that have had their corporate data encrypted. And they're not clients of ours. They'll call us up in a panic, looking for help. And there's someone asking, a cyber criminal is asking for a ransom payment, and they're desperate to get their data back. Well, when we transition the data away from your on-prem file server and up into SharePoint Online, the level of security, the level of protection against the encryption of your files, it goes up many-fold. And I think this is critical because it's becoming such a problem for small businesses today. The only way someone can get access to your file in SharePoint is using multi-factor. There's a single sign-on. We have things that we turn on called data loss prevention. We're going to talk to you a little bit during the demo today about that. And all the permissions that we assign to your data stay with the file regardless of the device the file happens to be on. So if we have a secure file and it ends up going from my PC and I try to email it somewhere else, if we've set that file up where it cannot be shared outside the company, it will be impossible to take that file and add it as an attachment so that I could email it over to my Hotmail account. So we're going to show you some of this today. And this ties in really nicely with taking your on-premise Exchange server and also moving that up to Exchange Online. Both of these products are included in your Office 365 subscription. You're more than likely not taking advantage of it. That's what we see in the marketplace. And it's so compelling to make the migration. That's what this webinar is about. It's encouraging you to contemplate turning off your file server, never buy another one, and migrate. Another key thing, as well as security with SharePoint Online, is compliance. If you're in the healthcare industry and you have to protect medical records and medical information on a patient, we can completely lock that down in SharePoint. In fact, there's a little check mark we check, and SharePoint will scan every file that's going in and out of SharePoint. And if it sees a social security number, or perhaps you're in the financial industry and we see a bank account number, when SharePoint sees these things, it'll lock the file down further according to rules that we have pre-programmed before you start sharing your files. So there's really a great ability to improve the compliance and control of your data also when you migrate. So to me, one of the most compelling things also is the cost benefit. So we kind of rubbed up against this a little bit. Because SharePoint and OneDrive are absolutely free, you're already paying for them, you can shift your IT. Two of the most expensive parts of your IT are running an Exchange server and running a file server. And you can shift from a capital expense model where every 5 years you're writing a big check, capital, and then depreciating the cost of that over a 5-6 years, however long you keep that equipment on-prem and operating. And the checks are big. Many of our customers, if they do replace a server with us, the average server price for one of our clients is around $12,000, and that doesn't include the $2,000 server operating system. So we're at $14,000, and we haven't put a file server up yet. We haven't spent the money to migrate you to a new file server with professional services. So if you could avoid that $14,000 charge every 5 years, I think that's a big deal. And then you could avoid having to worry about backups. You could avoid not having to worry about having your data crypto locked and stolen from you. There's a lot of compelling reasons to move to SharePoint Online. Most importantly is financial if you're the business owner. So I think SharePoint also goes beyond just files. And SharePoint also allows you to create essentially intranet websites for the business. And you can literally create pages where you share your manufacturing KPIs or your sales KPIs. I'll give you an example of some of what this looks like. We can help you create cards where people ask for vacation or where they enter when they're taking time off. We can create cards for signing up. If you're doing an A&P here, we might do something on a weekend special for the company, and there's a sign-up sheet right here on SharePoint that every employee has access to. You can also, as I mentioned, graph data, show gauges, you name it. We can help you with Power BI. Take your application interfaces from your line of business software and actually present them in a graphical way in SharePoint so your employees can see how things are going for critical data. So I'm going to move on right now. I'm going to stop presenting. I'm going to shift you over, and I want to introduce Matt McCarthy, who is our cloud engineer. And as an architect, he's going to take you through what the product looks like. Take it away, Matt.
Thanks, Dave, and good afternoon, everybody. Today, we're going to be covering 4 different topics. The first is accessing your files, what that looks like in Teams, SharePoint, and OneDrive, how you share files, and specifically what that looks like with sensitive files and what kind of warnings you would get. We're going to show you, collaborating on files, how that works with multiple users in the same document. And then last but not least, searching and indexing, now that all your files are in the cloud, how do I find them? So let's start on that. The website I have open here is office.com, and it's kind of the first page you go into when you log into your Office 365 account. And there is a lot of information here that you can jump right into any document that they recommend. And we'll come back to this a little bit later when I show you the searching. But for our purposes, where we want to start is Teams. And it sounds strange, why are we starting with Teams when this is a SharePoint presentation? But like Dave said, Teams is essential to the 365 ecosystem. It is the hub that you use to access all of the 365 content. So SharePoint is kind of the back end, and then Teams is the front end that you would use to collaborate with your employees, access the files from your computer, your cell phone, or really any device that you have that has the Teams app on it. So here on this page, you can see there's lots of comments and commentary going back and forth in this channel, but there's also a Files tab here. And any files that were shared, so you can go back to the post here, you can see Dell Vance shared that scope of work file, and that's going to appear directly in the Files tab. And any document that someone posts, if we go back to here, Megan had posted a GIF, that shows up here automatically. So as your users are chatting and sharing files, without them knowing, they're storing the files in SharePoint, and all of your regulation and data protection policies are automatically being applied to this data. But let's say you don't want to work in Teams, you want to work in SharePoint. So you can go to it through a number of different ways, but the easiest way I find is the Open in SharePoint button in Teams. So if we click on that, you can see the exact same files are here, and you can access them identically as you would in Teams. We can click into this document, it loads up the document. You could type, and the best thing is, like it says here, it saves as you go. So in the top left-hand corner, you could say this is saved. It goes to saving and then save. Now, why that's important is you don't work on a document for 4 hours and lose it, or your power doesn't go out and you have to go to that recovered file and hope that it shows you your file when you reopen Word. You'll have your document up to the second that you're typing, so you'll never lose documents as you work on them. The final place I wanted to show you is OneDrive. Now, what is OneDrive? OneDrive, like Dave said, is your My Documents in the cloud. That's kind of a gross oversimplification. It really is a SharePoint library that's specific to you. But the difference with OneDrive is everything in OneDrive is private to you unless you specifically go ahead and share it out. Now, what that means is you can see here under the sharing column, there's a lot of items in here, and most of them are private, but there are items you have the ability to share out or that have been shared, and you'll see a little shared icon when you've gone ahead and shared that file out. Why that's important is you really can't share documents easily out of your My Documents as is now. You're attaching a file, someone makes an edit, you got to put it back in your My Documents. You have to rename the file. It gets kind of kludgy and confusing. So you can work and let users work on your documents that are in your My Documents or your OneDrive without ever having to move them. And if you need to revoke access, you can do that at any time. So let's cover the next topic, which is sharing files. So I'm going to be showing you how to share files in OneDrive, but it's functionally identical with how you're going to share them in SharePoint. OneDrive and SharePoint are built on the same type of technology, so your users will have the same experience with sharing no matter which app they're operating in. So for this purpose, let's try to share the agenda topics. So when we click on that, you can see your options at the top here change. So if we want to share this document, it's easy as clicking the share button. And then you get some options. So you can make every time anything you share, you can really drill down and pinpoint your permissions for exactly with what you're sharing. If it's a document that, it's a cookie recipe and you don't really care who sees it, you can have anyone with the link look at it. If you only want, people internally to be able to access it, but you don't want to have to go and manually check off hundreds of users and share them, you could say only people in my company, in this instance, the AMP demo tenant. The third option is people with existing access. It's kind of confusing, but that would be something like you have an HR or an accounting team, and you don't want users to be able to share the content with anybody, even inside the company, unless an admin or someone specifically, the owner of that library or the owner of this OneDrive, manually define them. So that's kind of a secure way to generate a link for people who have already been defined that access. And the example that we're going to use here is specific people. So that is, you have a user outside the company, or you have a specific user. I want to share the content in my OneDrive here with Dave, but I don't want to share it with anybody else, and only Dave. I would put, I would use this option. Thing to kind of bring your attention to here at the bottom, there is additional options. So there's an allow editing option where you can say, I want to share the document with them, but they can only open it in read-only mode. You can say open, they're allowed to edit the document, but only open it in review mode. And what that means is they can look at it and they can suggest changes in the review option and kind of document it and note up your document, but they can't actually commit those changes. You have to come in and commit those changes for them. And then the last option is block your download. So you can go ahead and say, I want to share this document, but I don't want them to be able to download it and take it somewhere else or copy it. So that's another option you have. And another option here with anyone with the link that I kind of glazed over, but it's really important. You can actually set expiration dates on different links. So if you're in like a competitive bidding situation, or you have a price that expires at the end of the month, I could say share this with whoever I want to generate the link for, but expire the link on the end of the month. So they can't take your bid or your proposal and send it to a competitor. They can't keep it forever and come back to you and say, why did my pricing change? So you can expire the link, which is pretty nice. You can also set a password. If it's secure, you want to share the link with anyone with the link, and they don't want to have them sign in, but you still want some level of security around it. So you can put a password, and as long as they know the password and they have the link, they can get in without logging in. The next thing I wanted to show you guys is how it works when you're sharing a document with sensitive data. So let's kind of take a look at that. You can see here, if we look at this Contoso purchasing permission, there's one thing that's different about it than any of the other documents. And what that is there's a little stop sign here. If you hover over it pretty quickly, you'll see it. But it also pops up here and says, hey, this contains sensitive information. Some commands are not available. So let's take a look at what that means. If we go to details, it says access to this item is blocked. It conflicts with a policy in your organization. So let's take a look further. It says item contains the following sensitive information: credit card number, US bank account number. So we have in this demo tenant set up that if someone has a credit card number or banking information, they could try to share, but it won't let them. This will say, and access to this item is blocked for anyone except its owner, last modifier, and the site owner. So I'm able to access the document, but if I try to share this document, it will let me share it, but the user on the other end isn't going to be able to get it. It will give them an error message saying you're not allowed to access this document. Check with the person who sent it to you, and then the person would be able to see this tooltip. That's just how we have this document, that rule set up. You could go further. You can say, I don't want them to be able to share the document. I don't want to create confusion for the people on the other side. So when they try to send the document, it says, sorry, this isn't allowed. Contact your administrator. You could also say, I want only specific people to be able to send documents, but they have to provide a business justification for why they're doing it. So that pop-up's going to come up and say, hold on, we're not letting you do this. Are you sure you want to go ahead? And they have to check a box saying, yes, I want to do this anyway. And then they have to put in a document. They have to put in a field saying, I want to do this, and here's why. And that gets logged forever. So if there ever is an issue with intellectual property getting out or an HR problem, you can go back to the logs and say, why did you share this document? Or, what were you doing here? and have proof that if you ever have to hopefully never go to litigation, you have it documented in case you need it. So it's very powerful. It's not just tied to banking and regulation information. At AMP, we have things like client IP addresses and client passwords. Anything that could potentially be stored in the wrong information, we have detecting, and we designed all of those filters ourselves. So it can be phone numbers if you have a customer list. It can really be anything, but Microsoft does have a really nice suite of labels and rules built out that we can kind of take advantage of day one. So that's sharing. Just to kind of show you in SharePoint that it is the same when I click on any of these files. You get the share link, and there is one option. One thing with difference here is anyone with the link is disabled on the site level. So what that means is this SharePoint library we're in, the Mark 8 project team, the creator of the project team decided, I don't want any of my users to be able to share any of these files with anyone unless they're specified. So as an admin, you can go through and say, only give people in SharePoint these 3 options. Or these 2 options, or only this 1 option. In OneDrive, you have more of an option available to you because it's your data. So that's sharing, and now you can see that it's the same in OneDrive as it is in SharePoint. Let's go on to the next topic. So the next topic we said we were going to talk about is collaborating on files. So picking one here, I'm going to pick the scope of work for company ABC, and it's going to load up. And as soon as I go into the document, something you're not going to see in your regular office is, while you were gone, Christy Klein made changes. So let's click on that, and it highlights every change. So she added this word video. As she is typing, I can see her typing. She needs, bacon on here, probably some butter, and then maybe some more butter or bacon. But you can actually see her as she types. So I could say, thanks, Christine, if I can type correctly, and send her the message, and she'll get a prompt on that. If you wanted to have a chat here, I could say, all of your chat comments come over here. And the good news is this will actually drop into OneDrive after a few moments. So if Christine does not acknowledge this, if we go back to, excuse me, not OneDrive, it goes to SharePoint or to Teams. Here's a message I put in that document yesterday. So, and it was while Christine was offline. So since she didn't notice it, it dropped it into the team where the file was in. So if she's operating in that, someone else or her will be able to see that notification. So let's see what Christine asked me for when I got back. The pricing doesn't look right. So I'm going to say this looks good. We just updated our pricing. This is approved. So without me having to call Christine or send an email or send a Teams message, she can now go through. She got the message and she can start adjusting the pricing. And I can see exactly where she is in the document at all times. And if I wasn't sure, I can go up to her face here in the top right corner. It says she's on page 2, but I had trouble finding her. So let me just say go exactly to where she is, and it brings me directly to where she is in the document. So why is this great? I mean, to me, it's really cool because it's not something you really had in a legacy file system. You don't have to, say, hey, I'm logged into this Excel document. I need you to come back in an hour because I have it locked. You don't have to have your users wasting their cycles coordinating who can be at the document at the same time, let alone the gains you get from productivity from the collaboration that people can get by working on a document all at the same time. I've had as much as like 10 or 15 people, my entire server desktop team, in a document at once, all brainstorming on the same topic. I think for us, we were doing interview questions because we were hiring a new resource. So everyone was writing questions all at the same time in a document that I would normally have to have a meeting for, send back and forth, have people's approval, add things. We were all able to work on the same document at the same time and get it all done in a 30-minute window instead of an hour and a half. And it was just a huge improvement for us, and we really like this feature. We use it a lot. And you can, if you want to see any of the changes Christine made that I kind of referenced at the top here, it does drop little circles for every change that she makes. So if you missed that little pop-up in the beginning, you can still find what changes she's making as she at a later date. So like that's great. I really like the collaboration, but what if I have a document that I don't want people to collaborate on? This is a document that I only want one person in at a time because that sounds like a disaster to me for certain types of work that we do. There is a solution for that. So say we wanted to make this document so only I could access it. I go to the three little dots here, and then I go to more, and there's a checkout option. So I already have this document open, so it's not going to let me do that. So let's go back to it and close it. So it does give you a little feedback if someone already has the document open. And then we'll go back to the three dots and we'll give it another shot. So it says, hey, your document's checked out now. Let's check off of it. Everyone else that has access to the SharePoint library also sees now this document is checked out because it has this little icon here for me. And it says, hey, you checked out this item, so others can't edit it. I can forget my checkout, or I can check it back in. Other people would see a different tooltip saying, hey, Adele Vance, who I'm logged in right now, check this document out, so you're not going to be able to access it. So I'm going to check this document back in. I made changes to the pricing. That little checkbox is gone. Anyone in the company can access the document and check it out if they want. And the good news is all of that detail of checking in and checking out and why you checked it back in, that note of me updating pricing is stored. So you can look back at a history or timeline of a document at any point and kind of put together a story of the changes that were happened and why they were happened if it is a sensitive document. The next thing I wanted to show you is like, this is really great. I really like this, but well, if I have 30 people in a document and they make a mistake, how do I go back? So let's look at that document we were working on, because it is a good question. Click on those three dots and go down the version history. So every version of this document that has ever existed is accessible to me. And I can just, as a user, without having to call an IT team, I can view the document, I can restore it, create a new version of it. If I were to go all the way back to the beginning and restore this specific file, for example, it wouldn't delete all these other versions. It would just create a new version that has the content of this file. Every document in SharePoint is able to be stored, or is by default stores 50,000 versions of before you'll lose one. So once it gets to 50,000, unfortunately, you're going to lose a file and you'd have to go back. It would delete number one, and then it would kind of just start from the bottom and work its way up. I don't think we have any clients that have ever got to 50,000. So if you guys do ever get to 50,000, please let me know. I'd like to take a screenshot. I think it would be pretty impressive. But the point of it is you can restore these files with a couple clicks or see information about what was changed without having to involve your IT team. So you're working at 5 o'clock on a Friday night, and AMP is pretty quick with getting back on file restores, but there's times where you may have to wait an hour, and you don't want to have to wait an hour because your kid has a soccer practice and you need to get to it. This empowers your users to do what they need to do to get back working without having to involve IT. It's all completely self-service. And all of these versions for every file is kept, forever, more or less. If the file gets deleted, there's 3 different recycle bins it goes to. You can see one of them here. So if I were to delete this file, it would drop into this recycling bin. If someone manually goes into that recycling bin and deletes the file there, it goes into an admin-only recycling bin where only AMP could log in and delete it. That file will sit there forever based on our retention policies. So we would have to manually go in and delete the file. And then so the file would have to be deleted twice at that point. After it gets deleted twice, it goes to a third Microsoft-only recycling bin where you have 30 days to reach out to Microsoft and ask them to restore it. So you would effectively have to delete the file twice and let 30 days go by before you would know that you lost your file. And the benefit to this is even though you've deleted the file now twice and had Microsoft restore it, all of that version history is retained. So normally when you're restoring a file, you lose all of the history. It gets restored as a brand new file. Everything gets kept with the file forever, up to that 50,000 limit. And that's just major versions. So if you just go in and change one version, there's another 50,000 minor versions. So you can have 50,000 times 50,000 versions. It gets complicated quick, but the moral of the story is pretty much every change you make, you can get back to and restore incredibly easy without having to involve IT. And it's something that a user can do. The last thing I wanted to talk about is searching. So let's go back to the Office app here where we started. You can see that as I've worked on these documents, it's organically picked up, that, hey, you've worked on these documents without me having to refresh the tab. When I came back, it was already here. But say I wanted to find that company document because it wasn't there. All I have to do is type in comp and it finds the document automatically. They are searching all of your files in SharePoint OneDrive in 365, more or less, all the time they're indexing them. They use search engines just like Google, but they use it against your data. So Microsoft has Bing. Not a lot of people would ever admit to using it, but it is a very powerful search engine, and it does a really good job at indexing your files. And they use that technology that they're getting from the public sector in your SharePoint, where you can say, I want to look for a company, or it's even better. You could say, I want to look for files that Lee shared me. So you can search for people. Say, show me information about Lee. Show me, his contact information, bunch of information about him. Show me any of the files that Lee and I have worked on or Lee shared with me. So you don't even need to know, hey, this was an Excel document with this name, or it had this content in it. You just need to know that at some point in the history, Lee shared me a file, and I can go in and see a list of every single file that Lee shared me and say, oh, this was the one he shared me, the RD projects from his OneDrive. I can click into it and access it right from here. So it's extremely powerful. You have your My Recent, so any document you were recently in is in here. You have your shared files, so any files that were recently shared with you will pop up in here. There is like a limit. I think it shows like 10 or 15. And while I don't have any files, if you do have a favorite file, it's kind of strange, but if there's a file that's your favorite one, you can star it here and it will always show up in this list. And then at the top here, you have a list of files that Microsoft believes you're going to access based off of analytics. So if they say, every Monday, the first Monday of every week, you open up your sales document and put these numbers in, that's going to show up here. If they say, this document's extremely popular with your team, it's going to show up here. Really powerful for onboardings of new employees, everything of that nature. And it just really helps close the gap. One thing I wanted to show you is the kind of before we close it out is, this is really good, but it's kind of scary to me that the search engines can get me so much results. I don't want people searching things that they don't have access to. While it does index every user's file, every user's data, the results that you see are only tailored to you. So what that means is, if I'm logged in as a Dell Vance, I can see files in other people's SharePoints, but only if they share those files with me. I can see only the teams that I'm a member of. I can see only the SharePoint teams or libraries that I've joined, and I can see every file on my OneDrive. So while you have the ability to search files, people, all these different things, you're only going to see things that you have access to, or if you're a big enough company, people inside the scope of your vertical. So it's an extremely powerful resource, and as you can see, it's extremely fast and really a wonderful tool. And while we've had people who have had concerns with going to the cloud, showing them the search and showing them how much faster it is than searching for your regular on-prem really kind of closes the gap. And this is also available as a desktop app. So if you're like, this is great, but I don't want to work in a web browser, this identical experience that you're seeing here is available in a application that we publish to all of our clients as one of our best practices once they get the SharePoint library set up for them. So with all that said, that is the demo in a nutshell. I'm going to pass it back to Dave, and he's going to go over some of our best practices and how we get you to where you're at right now, to being able to use all these features that I just showed you. So back to you, Dave.
Well, that was really, really great, Matt. I think all it would take is one or two use cases that you just showed for someone to motivate someone to switch. Whether it's the ability to search, or the ability to do backups and versioning faster. Any of those things, I think it's really impressive what you showed. Thank you so much for that. Nice job. All right, next thing we want to talk about is, well, let's say, all right, you've seen SharePoint now, and you've also seen OneDrive, and you're thinking, you know what, my file server is pretty old, and I'm going to have to buy a new file server soon. Maybe it is appropriate for me to consider going to SharePoint Online. Well, we have a process for it, and honestly, as a business owner, I could share with you very quickly, once we started talking, how much money it would cost in professional services to migrate you off of your on-premise ancient file server up into SharePoint Online, into the modern office. It would be a one-time charge. And once you're there, you're there. You never buy another file server, another operating system, or have another implementation project. Once you're done, you're done. And I think, to me, that's a super compelling, that it's very inexpensive to get this implemented. So I think a great time to think about this is, God forbid, you had been crypto locked and you had to pay ransom, or you used your backups to recover your data. That would be a great time to contemplate, hey, I never want to go through this again. I want to go up to SharePoint Online. Or, like I said, maybe have an old file server and it's getting a little long at the tooth as your ancient file server, and it's time to migrate. Those are great points in time to talk to us about taking a look at this. We have a very defined process on how to migrate you into SharePoint and OneDrive. And the first thing we do is we take all of your employees' shared document files and move them, all their data, right up into OneDrive. And it's very easy for us to do it. Typically, we can do it over a couple of days. And once your data is in your OneDrive, down at the bottom of your screen, at that point, it's very easy to use. We have short videos that we share with all your employees to show them how to use OneDrive, how to share files, how to sync their own files. It's easy peasy. And once we get OneDrive done, then we'll take a look at, we'll bring your key stakeholders together and really take a look at all your data sets that are left on the file server. And oftentimes, certainly in the case of A&P, we're a 32-year-old business. I mean, look at the color of my hair. And because we're an old business, we had a lot of really old files. And we decided when we brought the stakeholders together that, hey, we don't need 30-year-old and 20-year-old files migrated off our file server and moved up into SharePoint Online. And so we were really able to trim our data down, clean up our directory structure, and then migrate our data right up into SharePoint Online for the whole company to use. So it was really easy. I'm so glad we did it, and I completely agree with what Matt shared with you. It is literally faster to search and get my data right now out of SharePoint Online in a Microsoft data center than it was running on a local area network in the building with my old file server. It's literally faster, and you would never think that's the case. I promise you it is the case. Well, once we've got you migrated up into SharePoint and OneDrive, well, the next question is, hey, do you need a managed service to support it? And we've come out with a whole series of managed services that relate only to Microsoft Azure Data Center and Microsoft 365 Office 365. So you'll continue to buy managed services for your traditional support desk and reactively helping all your employees with all their IT issues as things come up. But we have Secure Cloud Advantage, our brand new service, and we're using that just to take care of the 12 online portals that all relate to Microsoft 365. And Microsoft's constantly updating SharePoint Online. They're constantly adding bells and whistles to OneDrive. And if you migrate your data up yourself or with a third party and then don't buy a managed service, you're going to find that over time, the delivery decays, the security decays, because Microsoft's adding all these new things and you never implemented them. So what a managed service does for these cloud-based products is ensure that you're always using the latest and greatest. Everything's implemented. All the best practices are in place. It's very inexpensive to turn on managed services for the cloud from us. We do it on a per-user basis, and it's been extremely successful, and it's being well adopted. So how do you get started? How do you get going with this? Well, if you're our current client of A&P, you can reach out to Mike Silverman, your virtual CIO, or if many of you on here today are not A&P clients, and we would feel free to, hey, send us an email, reach out to us, and we can spend a couple of minutes talking about your data, how old's your file server, what's the next step for you as far as your file server goes, and find out, hey, do you have OneDrive in place right now? Have you done a Microsoft Exchange on-prem conversion to Exchange Online? We can kind of get a sense very quickly of where you're at, and if it makes sense. We can also offer you, if you're not really ready to talk yet, we'd be happy to provide a Microsoft 365 assessment for you and give you about a 12-page report on how your 365 environment looks against Microsoft's best practices. It's free. We'll give you the report, and at that point, the data is yours to use as you like, and we're happy to do that assessment for you. It takes about 2 days to do it, and like I said, won't cost you a dime. And then finally, if you just want to fool around in SharePoint, we'll give you access to the SharePoint Online demo portal that we have that you just saw Matt using. So there's three different ways to engage with us, and we'd love to have a conversation with you. So that's it from me. I'm really grateful that you've given us some time today. But before you leave, we're going to do some questions and answers, and I'm going to pass it back right now to Andrea, and she's been collecting a Q&A during the presentation here. So, Andrea, back to you.